my name is Alma Lingad, and today is July 1st, 2021. And today we will be discussing about the reflex and sensory physiology. We will also be dissecting a cow's eye. And before we end our discussion, I will be briefly discussing gonna give an example of an eye disease. So what is reflex and sensory physiology? Well, reflex is involuntary and nearly instantaneous movement in response to a stimulus. A very good example is when light acts as a stimulus, the pupil of the eye or the black center of the eye changes in size. And then the sensory physiology covers the different classes and location of sensory receptors and how they work to relay information about stimuli to the nervous system. Before we proceed to cow's eye dissection, we have to make sure that we wash it in cold water and wipe it with paper towel, which I already did. As you can see, the cow's eye is covered in fat and muscles that's connected to the eye. Let us locate the optic nerve. It's going to be on the posterior side of the eye cavity. So this is the optic nerve that is protruding out of the posterior portion of the eye, like I said. So we have to cut out these fat and muscle tissue located around the optic nerve and around the eye by using a scissors. And after I cut them all out, I will be right back. Now let us start cutting the fat tissue and muscles. Like I said, you have to be careful not to cut any part of the front eye or the cornea. So I decided to use a forceps because it's more safe. Because this is very tough muscle tissue, so you have to be very careful. And I will be right back when I'm done with all the cutting. After I'm cutting away most of the fat and muscle tissue around the eye, this is how it looks like. So this white outer layer of the eyeball is called sclera. It is tough, protective covering, and the muscles that control the eye movement are connected to it. And this part is the cornea. It is clear outer layer at the front of the eye. It helps your eye to focus light so you can see clearly. And at the back or the posterior side of the eye is the optic nerve, which we have seen in the beginning, located at the back of the eye. As I said, it is also called the second cranial nerve. Its job is to transfer visual information from the retina to the vision centers of the brain via electrical impulses. Now let's move further. We have to cut the cornea of the eye with scissor or scalpel. So I use scalpel downward, and like this, and that fluid aqueous liquid is, let's see, it's supposed to come out, and this is the anterior eye cavity. Oh, there it is, the liquid. Is the space between the cornea and lens. Like that. Yeah, that's the aqueous liquid. It is filled with a watery fluid, the anterior eye cavity. The aqueous humor is filled with watery fluid, like I said, and we'll go from there. Now let us cut the eye using the scalpel, into an anterior and the posterior portion. Cutting downward. And it's gonna look like this. This gelatinous portion of the eye is called the vitreous body. The vitreous humor is the posterior cavity, or filled with more viscous fluid. As you can see, it is gelatinous type. So this is the lens of the eye. It is located directly behind the iris and the pupil. It is the second part of your eye. See, after the cornea. It helps to focus light and images on our retina. Objects and people that are either nearby or at a distance. The lens provides 25 to 35% of your eye's focusing power. Now let us locate the retina of the eye. The retina is the thin layer of tissue that lines the back. Here it is. The back of the eye on the inside. It's actually an extension of the brain. This is how it looks like. The layers senses light and sends signals to the brain so you can see. Using my forceps, I'm going to remove the vitreous liquid in order for us to locate the optic disc. So here it is. The optic disc is the optic nerve head is the location. It's actually right here. As you can see, behind it, the posterior is the optic nerve. So the optic disc is the location where ganglion cells, axons, exit the eye from the optic nerve. There are no light-sensitive rods or cones to respond to a light stimulus at this point. This causes a break in the visual field called the blind spot. Moving forward, let's look at the lens again of the eye, which is, like I said, located directly behind the iris and the pupil. So it is really tough, actually. So in able for us to locate the iris and the pupil of the eye, we have to remove it gently. We are using the forceps. This is how it looks like, the lens of the eye. Okay, so after I scoop the lens, the iris is behind the cornea. As we discussed before, the cornea is the clear outer layer of the front of the eye. So the iris behind the cornea is the eye with adjustable circular opening in the center called a pupil. By the way, iris provides an individual with eye color, and the pupil, which are the black center of the eye, the function is to let in light in and focus it on the retina, the nerve cells at the back of the eye, so we can see. Muscles located in our irises, our iris, the colored part of our eye, control its pupil. Now, before we end our discussion for today, let us briefly discuss about cataracts, or a very common disease of the eyes. Well, most cataracts develop in people over age 55. but they occasionally occur in infants and young children or as a result of trauma or medications. Cataracts is a cloudy of the normally clear lens of the eye. As you can see here, this is a normal eye with a clear normal lens. But this one is a patient that suffers from cataracts. Well, as light as is scattered, so lens can no longer focus it properly, causing vision problems. Since the lens is made of mostly proteins and water, the clouding of the lens occurs due to changes in the proteins and lens fibers. And that will be the end of our discussion for today. I hope you guys enjoyed our discussion and you learned something new from our dissection. I hope you guys will have a great day. Bye!